Welcome to Trifecta Collective, finding the root, where we dive deep into understanding and addressing root causes of chronic health issues so you can help and find healing inside and out, now and forever. Hello, and welcome to Trifecta Collective, Finding the Root. I'm Megan Abbott, owner and founder of the holistic health practice Trifecta Collective. Welcome to the podcast. So today we are talking about health anxiety. And I want to talk about where we often see this come from, how this can often present, and then I want to walk through kind of two pieces here. I want to walk through some simple, good starting points to start to relieve health anxiety. And I'm going to go through a process that we use with so many of our clients, which, by the way, significant health anxiety is actually really common. Minor health anxiety is even more common. And we see this all the time in our practice here. So these are things we're seeing with so many clients. And what I've done is create a little checklist. And this is a checklist that I also use for myself as a practitioner to not so much health anxiety, but I can go down some really deep pathways when things come up for me and go down some deep rabbit holes. And this little checklist helps pull me out of that. And I've started to use it with clients. And we've started to use this more in the practice as a whole. And we're seeing some really amazing results in just how simple this checklist is and how far it can really go. And so we're gonna openly share this checklist. We are gonna list this in the show notes, all of these questions. And I don't know if we're gonna just list them out or if we'll probably have a little PDF document that'll look really pretty that Andy, our behind the scenes everything woman, will put together for us. But this is also a tool that you can also customize for yourself. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. So health anxiety overall is very common, once again, especially among women. And I think one thing that's really important to note, and this is on the checklist. I'm also going to talk deeper about this because I do think it's very relevant. And I'm going to reference a handful of other podcast episodes, especially depending on where you are age-wise as a woman. But I think it's important to acknowledge that we're not supposed to feel the same all the time. And I don't know how many of us really know and truly deeply understand that we don't, as women, we don't operate on a 24-hour cycle like men do. Men operate with their hormones, specifically testosterone, on a 24-hour cycle. And this is how our entire society is built. Part of the problem, which is why so many women just don't feel the best in kind of standard society, because it wasn't built for us. It was built by men, for men, and men's hormones, not for women and our hormones and our true cycles that we actually go through. Having deeper understanding of our own bodies, I have found to be incredibly insightful for myself, but also helping to educate our clients, who are mostly women. And by the way, I also really encourage men and male partners to also understand this, because if you can understand this about a woman that you live with, whether that's a mother, a daughter, a significant other, even just friends, female friends around you, this can go such a long way in helping you build deeper, realer connections and be able to provide various levels of support and to be there in a way that can really feel different in a woman's life. So I also think it's important for men to understand this. And I also don't think most men understand that even as women, no one teaches us about our bodies. The little class we did, I know I did, we used to call it Wonder of Wonders. It was fifth grade. I think it was fifth grade, fifth or sixth grade. I think fifth. Now I'm questioning whether it was fourth grade. I think it was fifth grade. Anyways, regardless, that little seminar where the boys and the girls were split and the boys learned about their bodies, and or so we thought. And then women, we learned about our bodies, or so we thought. Probably neither one was great. I know, like, as a woman, I was given that. My mom never really had a real official conversation with me about my body, puberty changes. She gave me a book about it, a very thick book that also went into detail about various things around sex and sexuality and pleasure and different things like that, which was a little jarring to go through that by myself. But also, even still, there was a lot of shortcomings that went into this. So, once again, I think it's just important that we acknowledge and understand that as women, we go through, while we're menstruating, 28-ish day cycles. If we're on birth control, totally different. Our bodies are totally different. Even if we're on birth control that has no hormones, let alone if we are on birth control with hormones. I also think that's important to acknowledge and understand. And also, I don't know of anyone whose doctor has told them that before going on birth control. I think that's important to acknowledge. And then as we go through perimenopause and menopause, once again, we're having totally different shifts and changes as well. So we're not going to feel the same all the time. And that can bring about a lot of anxiety, health anxiety as women, where, like, maybe we have a couple of days where we feel like amazing. Like, our bodies just feel so good. We feel energized. Our cognition is sharp and on point. Digestion feels good. We feel thin. We just feel good in our bodies. And then 3 days later, we're having panic attacks and we cannot focus on a thing. We can't remember basic words and we cannot sleep and we do not know what is wrong with us. One, there is nothing wrong with you. You are probably ovulating and then you probably switched to your luteal phase. And there's some imbalances or lack of optimization going on within your body, which is very common, and you do not have to suffer, but also acknowledging the shifts and changes that we go through. So if you feel in this position, and you as a woman or a male with women in your lives, few podcast episodes to go back through and maybe take a listen to again or for the first time. I just finished up a 3-part series on perimenopause. How do you know you're going through perimenopause and what is actually happening in our bodies? I've done a few episodes on our menstrual cycles and strengths and things to be aware of. I don't want to call them weaknesses, but things to be aware of as we go through our cycles and where some things can go wrong. So I know specifically there's a pretty early on episode where we do a really deep dive into this. Something about female hormones, menstruating female hormones. Go search for that and you will find that episode. Amazing episodes, really good, really in-depth. Always happy to do more around female hormones and cycles, things that can go wrong, things that should just naturally be there. So if you ever want more episodes around that, please just let us know. Email, social media, DM us, comment, whatever feels best for you. We read all of it and we get all of it. So I think that's important to understand. And I think, once again, no one teaches us that our body is going to go through changes. And sometimes that's even within a day. If you're not super into this space, I see a lot of content around this just because I'm in this space. Men's testosterone throughout the day, typically we're going to see about a 20 to 25% decrease throughout the day. It's a slow and steady decrease from first thing in the morning where it's the highest, and it kind of drops throughout the day. As women, especially depending on where we are in our cycle, we may see up to an 80% drop in some or all hormones in the same day. If a male experienced that in a day, there would be all kinds of medication. There would be all kinds of conversations about this. And because women have largely been left out of research and studies in the medical field because we are complicated and because our hormones shift so much, no one really talks about this, and we're just expected to be okay with it. But I also think it's important to understand, once again, like as a woman, you might feel great in the morning. You can have a total drop of your hormones throughout the day. I mean, this could be fatigue, this could be headaches, migraines, irritability, frustration, sadness, anger, bloating, water retention, cognition. I mean, all kinds of things. And I think it's just, once again, important to acknowledge that this is the reality of things that can happen in our bodies. It is okay. And it is okay not to feel the same every single day because our body is constantly shifting and changing because our hormones are constantly shifting and changing. Our hormones also respond to all kinds of things like stress, digestion, sleep, food, general nourishment, hydration, all of these things, which once again, all of these things are in my checklist that we're going to talk about here. But once again, I think just preempting this and having some understanding that this can happen, I think can bring some comfort and potentially some relief to know that within our health anxiety, when that comes up because something has shifted and changed, as women, like some things are supposed to shift and change, and that's okay. Now, if it's drastic, if it feels, alarming, like definitely there may be other issues going on. There may be imbalances. There may be other things which are worth looking into. I'll also say, as a practice, we do this. I don't think all practices do this because I have worked with practitioners and practices who I don't think do a good job of this. But within our practice, we're very aware of what is in our scope of practice and what is not. If there's anything ever alarming that comes up in any sort of testing, in any conversation with a client, we have zero hesitation referring out and be like, hey, this came up. Please go rule out X, Y, and Z. And some people will come to us and be like, should I go to doctor, whatever doctor it is, to rule this out? And my answer is always going to be, okay, one, let's look at symptoms, health history, labs. Is this a real possibility? If it is, and your anxiety is very high around that, go get it ruled out to give you peace of mind. If there are real concerns, once again, at least within our practice, we do not hesitate to refer out. And I'll say big things that we will often see, especially with very high iron saturation, we're going to refer out to a hematologist to rule hemochromatosis in or out. Getting a colonoscopy, endoscopy, if someone has a lot of like GI type issues, like, yeah, if that's going to give you peace of mind, 100% go for it. Almost never do they show things. And once again, like if you have a family history, if you have a lot of symptoms, go do it. Like go get your peace of mind and go get these things done. And at the same time, there are things that can have negative and very long-term consequences. Getting organs removed. There is a time and a place, and I do think we should try to keep our organs as best we can. That includes our gallbladder. We have saved many a gallbladder. Your uterus. It does do a lot. And just getting that out may not fix all of your hormonal imbalances, pain, different things like that. Worth a conversation. And at the end of the day, if that feels good for you, like do it. We will support you. If it's on getting on a medication for anxiety and or depression, like do it. Know what you're taking.
know the side effects, educate yourself beforehand, and is this a short-term or long-term solution? If it is a short-term, what does it look like to come off of these things? Important information. Not many people ask those questions or get a deeper understanding of that. And there are ways to do this to make things not miserable. If you have a history of cancer, if you have a family history of a lot of these things aren't as much genetically related as they are lifestyle related. That doesn't mean all things, and that doesn't mean things can pop up. To give you an example, early last year, my fiance was going through some weird stuff, and we were like, okay, is this seasonal depression? Is this, are you emotionally processing things? Is something specific coming up for you? Then some other things started to add up. We're like, okay, now we've got some other symptoms. Let's run some lab work. Let's rule some things in or out. Long story short, in case you're new to this, he ended up being diagnosed with cancer, has some family history, but not a super strong family history of cancer. And, looking back, I have some thoughts as to where and how that may have come up, why it may have come up, just based on some of my research. I don't specialize in cancer. As a practice, we do not specialize in cancer, and went down the cancer rabbit hole because he was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma and went through cancer treatment. And was this all genetically related? I personally don't think so. Once again, I can put some pieces together if we look at this and look at the whole picture altogether as to why and how that may have happened. And once again, if you have a family history of let's say, breast cancer, getting screenings. Screenings have pros and cons. There's a lot of options out there now. And weigh your options. Just understand the risks, the benefits of everything. And once again, if something's going to give you peace of mind, do it. And if you're constantly in that space of, oh, I have a brain tumor, I have cancer, I have gallstones, I have all of these things, time to take a step back because there's bigger, deeper trauma that is playing a role here. I'll say one of the most common reasons for significant health anxiety that we often see is seeing a parent or a close loved one go through a chronic illness, whether that's cancer, Parkinson's, hypermobility issues like EDS, going through there's a ton of surgeries, brain tumors, various MS, different autoimmunity issues. We can see these things, and so we become hyper aware. And once again, I think it's important to understand your genetics are not everything. Genes can turn on and off given the right environment. And so one of the things that we can do, if let's say you do have a family history of a lot of chronic illness diseases, is okay, let's run some yearly lab work. Let's keep an eye on things. And how can we give our bodies the most optimal conditions that we can? So ideally, these genes don't turn on. There's a book called Dirty Genes that talks a lot, and I forget who the author is. I will put it in the show notes. But that's a great book to understand epigenetics a little bit more. I think that's really important. Once again, I really do think that's really important to understand. I'll also say just because you have a family history of something doesn't mean you're going to get it. It also doesn't mean if you don't have a family history of something, you're not going to get it. There's almost no autoimmunity in my family. There's one person that I know of with autoimmunity issues in my family, and they are not a close relative. They are not like an aunt, an uncle, a first cousin. There are a few layers removed there. And I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease many years ago now at this point. I have also, we can call it reversed. We can say I put it in a remission, whatever we want to call it. I have done that. My labs have not shown autoimmunity in years. I have not felt autoimmunity issues in years. I have a family history of anxiety and depression. I suffered from anxiety and depression for the vast majority of my life. Was it because I have a family history, or was it because of generational trauma? Was it because of underlying gut issues and nutrient deficiencies, of toxin overload issues? Was it the own trauma I went through as a child? Any or all of those things, I do believe, play a big role in all of this. And so, once again, I think it's important to understand is that just because you have a family history of something doesn't mean that you're going to end up that way. I have a family history of addiction. I've been aware of it for a long time. Yes, I absolutely had a drinking problem in late teens through part of my 20s. Was I ever an alcoholic? I do not identify as that. I can have a drink. I can have a drink now. Not that I do, because I just don't feel good when I drink, but I can. And I'm very, very happy, very satisfied at one. I definitely don't want two. I will be quite tipsy at two, and I have no desire to feel that way. I also know the consequences of my sleep is not going to be as good. I am likely going to be hung over the following day, even just with one drink. And I don't need to feel that way. I don't want to feel that way. Every once in a while in the year of 2025, I did not have a single drink. The year before that, I had a glass and a half of red wine. This year, I don't know. Who knows? I'm okay with drinking and not really my thing at this point. I don't feel like I have addiction issues. I don't get pulled into that. And so it's like, okay, well, what's the history of addiction? Well, most of the people in my family with addiction issues, like question mark, I can say this for sure about two of my relatives, close relatives, that there was a lot of trauma that was unprocessed. And when that trauma was starting to be processed, the addiction stuff started to go away. And so we need to think about all of these things when it comes to health anxiety and our circumstances, health history, our family history of trauma, family history of a variety of things, gut health, eating patterns, lifestyle choices, stress, partnerships, like all of these things really need to go into our overall health. So, bigger picture, if we have a lot of health anxiety, we probably saw someone deal with significant health issues, and that likely led to significant health anxiety. Mild health anxiety is very common, by the way. Very, very, very common. Google and all of the AI stuff, not the most helpful. Especially, I remember WebMD when that first came out, and you look at your symptoms, everything was cancer. Everything indicated that you had cancer. And it's like, yeah, that's a possibility, and it's a pretty long shot to go down that road. So listen to your body, but also understand what your brain is telling you, and that our brain is constantly trying to protect us. And it's not always right. Our brain lies to us all of the time. All of the time. And I think that's really important to understand. So having mindfulness tools, having tools for us to reconnect with our body and be able to get out of our head and the rumination and the looping thoughts, very, very valuable here too. Meditation, journaling, breath work, somatic work, whatever it might be, a lot of tools going out there. Brain retraining work, amazing for this kind of stuff to get out of these constant patterns. And also understand that it takes time. You're not going to go into this and be like, I have health anxiety. I'm just going to use this checklist and I'm going to be totally fine. It's like, yeah, this checklist is going to be super helpful, and I'm going to get into it in just a moment. And we also need to look bigger picture. How and why did this start in the first place? And we got to unpack a lot of layers here. And if you're interested in like diving deeper, unpacking some of these layers, yes, we do this with our clients, and we can absolutely help you with this. We also offer some one-off services that can also be really helpful. I personally do energy healing sessions. I do 45-minute and an hour and 15 kind of sessions. The hour and 15 sessions we call intensive sessions because it just allows us to go a whole lot deeper. And if you're going to do a one-off, a lot of times that may be a little bit better, especially if we're new to each other. And the 45-minute one is also totally fine. And then Brendan offers trauma healing sessions, and she has a variety of tools in her toolbook: hypnotherapy, parts work, tapping, various somatic tools. She's in a craniosacral therapy training, Psych K, all kinds of stuff. So those are also options that if you're like, give me like a one-off or a couple off sessions to help me dig deeper into this, that is also an option. So I will also put those links down below in the show notes so that if you are interested in those are options as well. Just so, once again, in case you are interested, we have these things available and they are very valuable. We have some very powerful testimonies when it comes to a lot of this work. Okay, so let's dive into this checklist and what this checklist is really designed for and how I like to use it, how I like to use it with myself, and then also with clients that we're working with is, okay, something unusual comes up. Let's see, like a sharp stabbing pain in your abdomen, a level of discomfort in the middle of your back, like a weird aching that just kind of randomly starts. Before you go into the route of, I have stomach cancer, I have colon cancer, I have a brain tumor because I have a weird headache that popped up, before you go to my kidneys are failing, I broke my spine, whatever these things are. We're also assuming that there's been no acute injury that has happened in the last day or several hours or couple days. This can help talk you down a little bit and go through this. Now, I will say the better understanding that you have of your body and some of the basic physiology things, the easier to kind of practice and walk through some of these things, which I'm going to go, as I go through this list, I'm going to talk about a handful of these things. We've done a lot of other episodes that are also going to be very helpful and dive a little bit deeper. Like I talked about the hormone piece at the beginning here. We've done a lot of pieces on gut health, digestion. Super good. We have a free gut health masterclass. I'll put that down below. That talks more about the physiology and also, how do we help and support gut health? And it's totally free. So those can be also like good things to know and talk about. So number one on this list is, how did I sleep last night? If you didn't sleep very well, whether that was the amount of sleep or the quality of sleep, this goes a long way. Headaches, digestion changes, hormone changes, aches and pains, appetite shifts, all of these things can be from a poor night of sleep. Let alone if you chronically do not sleep well. 100%. All kinds of weird chronic stuff can happen. And just working on your sleep. And then the bigger question is, if you have chronic sleep issues, why do you have chronic sleep issues? Is it cortisol issues? Is it anxiety? Is it gut health? Is it nutrient deficiencies? Is it bedtime routines? Like, there's so many things that go into all of this. But generally speaking, if you sleep usually pretty well and you had a bad night of sleep, if you have a few bad nights of sleep in a row, 100% this impacts your body. As women, we are also more sensitive to a lack of sleep. It is estimated that most women need 8 to 9 hours regularly of quality sleep for our bodies to work optimally. Real talk, how many of you consistently get a quality 8 to 9 hours of sleep? It's a really big deal. Something to think about here. Next question. What was the last thing I ate? And bigger picture, what was the last thing I ate? What did I eat in the last 24 hours? What did I eat in the last 48 hours? especially with digestion. However, digestion isn't the only thing that can be impacted. For example, let's say you get a weird stomach cramp. And by stomach, I mean belly cramp in your abdomen area. And you're like, man, what is going on here? What did you eat in the last couple hours? When was the last time you ate? When was the last, what did you eat in the last 48 hours? Was there something new, different, something you know that often does not agree with you? Did you have a big bowl of ice cream? And are you crampy because your body doesn't handle dairy the best? Like, that could be it. Also, think about the amount of things. Some people do okay with dairy, some people do okay with gluten. But if you have high levels of processed gluten and dairy, you may have some side effects. You may not feel the best. I think that's important to acknowledge. Also, so what have you eaten in the last couple days? Like, have you been eating garbage for the most part? In which case, yeah, you might not feel good if you've been eating straight garbage for the last couple days. And I think that's important to understand. If you haven't been eating well and you haven't been sleeping well, I mean, that's a recipe in and of itself for all kinds of weird, random things to pop up. Also acknowledge for food as well. Food does a lot of things, and you can have a variety of reactions. Skin reactions, acne, rashes, hives, itching can all be related to your food. So we think about histamine levels within food. If we think about if we had if we're not used to eating a lot of probiotic rich foods and we have a big thing of kombucha or yogurt, whether that was dairy free or with dairy. If you're not used to eating probiotics, a lot of probiotics, and all of a sudden you flood your body with a bunch of probiotics, yeah, your body might have a reaction to something new and it's just not used to it. You might get bloated. You have some kimchi, some sauerkraut, something fermented, and you're bloated after, could be a sign of a gut overgrowth issue, something like SIBO especially. Could also be like your body needs a day or two to adjust to that much. Or maybe your body start with lower quantities of the good stuff. Also can be very valuable. Have you also gone from eating a bunch of garbage usually to eating super clean? Let's say you're doing like a Whole30 or something like that. Have you totally switched up your food in the last few days? Yeah, you can absolutely have side effects. Have you gone really low carb and you feel just like really low? Maybe your body just needs some carbs. Do you eat enough protein? Your body requires protein, and protein is the most underconsumed nutrient, blanket statement, but also especially among women. So it's like, have you given your body the nutrients that it needs? Those are all things to think about. The two other things when it comes to nutrition. When was the last time you ate? If you're like, I am so tired every day at 4:00. Okay, well, let's think about when was the last time you ate? If you ate lunch at 11:30 and it's 4, what did you eat for lunch? Did you have a little salad? Was that what you fueled your body with? You're probably hungry again. You're probably having a blood sugar crash at 4:00. So all of these things like really make a difference. Can cause a headache, fatigue, tiredness, abdominal cramping, weird kind of pains within our belly, acid reflux, heartburn. Like all of these things can play a role. So think about really just like, okay, when was the last time I ate? Am I having a blood sugar crash? Am I just like, your body needs to eat on a regular basis. And some people do better with 3 big meals. Some people do better with like 4 or 5 or 6 smaller meals. It really just depends on the person. Everyone's body's different. Also recognize that our bodies can change over time. And what felt good at one point may not feel good anymore. And we may need to make some adjustments and changes. And when these little things come up, it's a signal that our body is speaking to you, is communicating with you. So going through this checklist can help you understand that communication a little bit better. And then the last thing around nutrition is, how have you been eating? This is one that most people don't think about. If you, let's say, just because this is a very common scenario with a lot of our clients. Let's say you're a female, you're a busy mom, maybe you have a full-time job, part-time job, you have children. How do you get to eat? Do you get to like take a few big deep breaths and like sit there and enjoy your food and get to chew your food and take your time eating? Or are you shuttling kids? Are you trying to feed a small child while also feeding yourself and just shoving food in your face? That can also play a role. Acid reflux, heartburn, abdominal pain, stomach pain, headache, migraine, histamine reactions. All of these things can be a result of how you're eating. So, how have you been eating? Not only what have you been eating, but how have you been eating? Super important here. And once again, think about, a lot of people will get like really not don't feel good after lunch, and it's because they're sitting at their desk at work shoveling food in their face as they're working. And like, who knows if they're even chewing, they're chugging liquids on top of it, just trying to get the food down because they know they have to eat. But your body's not going to feel good after that. You need to chew your food. You need to take your time. Your body doesn't digest properly in a sympathetic stress state. We need, once again, understanding a little bit more of the physiology of behind some of these things can go a really long way. Next one. Man, is this also a really big one. And I'll tell you, once again, no one teaches us this, but the consequences of dehydration are super significant. So the question is, how much water have you drank in the last couple hours, but definitely that day, the last couple days? The number of people I see that drink anywhere between 8 to 24 ounces of water a day is astonishing to me. Your body is made up of so much water. You need water. Real water. Not all liquids are created the same. If you drink a bunch of tea, if you drink coffee and soda and juices, even if it's a clean juice, not necessarily the same as water. How much water have you drank? Headaches, kidney pain, fatigue, lower back pain, joint stiffness. All of these things can be dizziness. All of these things can be related to dehydration. Drink your water. Have some water. Also, understanding how you drink your water also makes a difference. Chugging water, our body has a hard time absorbing that. Sipping throughout the day, way better. Now, getting the water in is better than not getting the water in. So pick and choose your battles, especially when you're first starting off. If someone comes to us and they drink 1 glass of water a day, about 8 ounces, I'm not going to go to being like, hey, you need to drink 60 ounces of water. I need to make sure you're not chugging it. I need you to drink it throughout the day. And this is what this has to look like. I am setting that person up for failure, 100%. But if we go from 8 ounces to 16 ounces, okay, maybe they're used to having that with a meal. Okay, well, let's add in the second glass. Let's continue to have it with a meal. Is that ideal? No. And water is better than no water. Then we move up to 16. All right, now can we move that a little bit away from meals? Now can we add in another glass? Okay, now are we absorbing that water? Do we need some electrolytes to make sure we are absorbing that water and we're not peeing constantly? Also a big deal, and all things that we really need to think about and understand. Water is a really big deal. It can cause a lot of weird and random side effects when we're dehydrated, especially if we are chronically dehydrated. So, how much water have you had? Next question. Sticking along the digestion kind of route here, have you had a bowel movement? And if so, what was it like? Chronic constipation is a really big deal. And once again, also no one teaches us this. We should be having a full, complete bowel movement every day. And what I mean by full and complete bowel movement is should not take more than about 5 to 7 minutes to have a bowel movement. Should not be painful. You should not have to strain. It should not be painful. Should not be uncomfortable. You should feel complete and empty afterwards. It should not be loose. It should not be runny. It should be banana-y shape. It should not float. It should be a brownish kind of color, not super dark, but also not super light. And we need to think about all of that. Here's the other thing. If you have a weird bowel movement, that can indicate many things for us. For example, if someone's stool has, let's say, a little bit of an orangey kind of color to it, I automatically don't assume it's blood. It could be. If it's just a one-time thing and happens every once in a while, probably not blood. Probably bile coming out. So I'm going to ask the question, what have you eaten in the last 24 to 48 hours? And have we had some fat? Have we had enough fat? Have we had too much fat? Have you had some deep fried chicken? Or a bunch of fried foods? Or like greasy meals? That could all be it. It could just be that. So these are all things to really take into account when it comes to this, but bowel movements do really give us a really good idea of what's going on, good and or bad, or I don't want to say bad, I'll say not ideal. Let's say you have urgent, very loose bowel movements. Okay, well, there's a lot of things that can play a role in this. What you're eating, how you're eating, water intake. We want to look at all of that, but also liver, gallbladder. Are you producing enough bile? If you don't have a gallbladder, that is the answer. You need bile support. Ox bile is the way to go. A lot of options when it comes to bile support. Are you eating foods that just disagree with you? Do you have a bunch of gut overgrowth issues? That could just be it. Those are all fixable, by the way. Pretty simple, relatively speaking. Takes a little bit of time, but all very fixable things. So all of that could be playing a role. Doesn't mean you have cancer, doesn't mean you have gallstones, doesn't mean you have any of these crazy weird things. Next one here. This is so important for women who are not full-blown perimenopausal and still something to think about, even postmenopausal, but really specifically for the women anywhere from the time that you have gotten your period to full-blown menopause. Where are you in your cycle? Our hormones are impacted by so many things. So many things. Stress, sleep, nutrition, digestion, hydration, any or all of these things. Internal stress, external stress, all of the stresses, workouts, all of these things. All of these things can play a role here. So, where are you in your cycle? If you are in the first half of your cycle, you shouldn't experience too many negative side effects from a hormone perspective. Now, if you're in your luteal phase, this is where women typically are going to have the most issues, about 7 to 10 days before the start of their period. Now, you also have to have a real period to really understand this. If you're on birth control, especially hormonal birth control, you don't have a natural period. Once again, I think that's important to understand. If you've had a partial hysterectomy, obviously you don't know anymore because you're not going to actively be bleeding. It also doesn't mean that your hormones are not playing a role in this. If you are in perimenopause, hormone fluctuations are massive. Like I said, like 80% drop, potentially up to. Of course, you're going to feel that in a variety of ways physically and emotionally, probably. But changes in our hormones really can impact energy, fatigue, mood, headaches, histamine issues, sleep, energy, cognitive function, pain levels, inflammation levels, bloating, gut health, all of these things, our skin, all of these things can be impacted by our hormones. And once again, this is why I think it's so important for us to understand our bodies and our hormones to really get a good idea of, could this be playing a role? Is this playing a role? What role could this be playing in how I am feeling? So I think that's really important to understand. Next one. How much caffeine have you had? I'll tell you. And I saw this a lot as a personal trainer, and just I would shake my head every time this happened. And this happened several dozen times for reference. So this is not just it happened a couple times. But I would have people come in and they would get dizzy, lightheaded, nauseous, and we were not doing anything that would necessarily warrant that. And so I learned the hard way to start asking, tell me about your caffeine intake today. They're like, oh, well, I had, a cup of coffee this morning. And then after lunch, I had a tea or an energy drink. And then before I came to the gym, I had some pre-workout. Of course, you're dizzy and nauseous and lightheaded. You've had so much caffeine today. Like, your body can't handle that much caffeine. It's not good for you. And we need to understand that. So, real basic, like, how much caffeine have you had today? Have you had more than your usual, less than your usual? Because caffeine withdrawal is a real thing. Types of caffeine. Have you had more coffee? Have you had a random energy type drink? Have you had green tea? Like, what is different, and how much, and what has that caffeine intake looks like? Because that can cause a whole host of random symptoms to pop up here. Where is stress coming from in my life right now? Especially as women, but this is really across the board. Stress plays a really big role and can manifest and does manifest all of the time into physical symptoms of all kinds. Inflammation, pain, headaches, migraines, skin issues, digestive issues, sleep issues, mood, anxiety, depression, hair loss, all of these things can be playing a role. Our jaw health, our oral health, all of these things play a really big role. Are you under new stress? Has your stress shifted or changed? What does your total stress level look like right now? And here's the thing, you need to be really honest with yourself on this one. Just because you have handled this stress in the past does not mean your body is going to handle it the same. Just because you have been living with a lot of stress in your life doesn't mean at some point it is not going to catch up with you. Because let me tell you, it does. Always. Especially as a woman. Oftentimes this will show up in our mid-30s up through our 50s when our hormones are starting to shift. That alone can be playing a massive role. And if I had to give you one major root cause of chronic health issues, stress, big picture stress. I did an episode not too long ago about what really is stress. That was one of my all-time favorite episodes to record because this is such a common misconception and misunderstanding on what is actually stress and how do we identify stressors inside and outside of our body, and how do those stressors impact our mental, emotional, physical, and or spiritual bodies, because it impacts all of them. So really important to understand. Couple other basic ones here. I got a few others. When was the last time you went outside? I'm being very serious here. Has it been days since you've been outside and seen the daylight? Because that will impact your body and sleep and mood. Go outside, get some natural light in your eyes. What has movement, or maybe in parentheses, lack thereof, looks like in the last 24 to 48 hours? Straining muscles can happen way after the fact. Muscle soreness, different changes within our bodies can be impacted by movement and or lack thereof. So really important to think about, okay, what does my movement look like, once again, or lack thereof when it comes to that, and how might that be impacting my body? Have you changed, added, or subtracted any supplements This is another really big one. And a lot of people are like, yeah, all of a sudden I started like getting headaches and I have no idea why. I'm like, okay, what changed in your life? Oh, like a couple days before this. They're like, well, I started a new supplement, but it's, I just started magnesium and it's good for everyone. It's like, no. Okay, pause. What kind, what brand, how much? Just because it's good for someone else doesn't mean it's good for you and your body. We also need to understand, especially we can put medications in here. I think that's a little bit more obvious for most people. And I think it's also important to understand that, once again, women have not been included in most studies on medication. I'm going to repeat that. For most medications, it has not been studied on women, side effects, or dosing, let alone longevity of that medication. Really important to understand. Women's bodies are not small men. We are not small men. We are totally different. I did an episode, once again, on the podcast of Women Are Not Small Men. That's a really good one to get a better understanding of how pieces of the Western medical system have failed us as women. Big piece of that is we've been left out of studies on dosing, especially with pain medication, by the way. Dosing, timing, side effects, symptoms, long-term potential risks. Also say benefits too. That has also largely not been studied. So all things to kind of keep in mind. This is another one most people don't think of is, are there any big weather shifts going on right now? If you are more sensitive, if you have a history of chronic illness issues, if you, once again, like many, this is a strength and many of us don't like to acknowledge that. It can take some time. Weather changes can impact us. Changes in humidity, changes in pressure, different things coming in, lack of sunlight, lack of daylight even, can play a really big role in our health. So are there big weather changes going on? It is very common, once again, especially in people who have a history of chronic illness issues, to get headaches, migraines, joint pain when there are weather changes. And it's really the barometric pressure. It plays a big role in that. There are some other things that can also play a role, but barometric pressure plays a big role for a lot of people. So are there big weather changes going on? And is that why you're feeling whatever's going on in your body? Next one. What am I holding in? This is one where you do have to be pretty honest with yourself. And this can be very challenging if you're not used to doing some bigger self-reflection, inner work kind of things. I've shared this in the podcast before, but if you are new, I don't know if I've shared it very recently or not. I can't remember off the top of my head. But one of the things that happens when I am not feeling into sadness that is coming up for me is I will get nauseous. Sometimes I will get so nauseous that I literally cannot eat without gagging. It has just happened in the last few years, like 2.5, 3 years almost. It continues to happen. And a lot of times it's just because I need to cry. And I am holding it in for whatever reason. Maybe I haven't had the space to process it. Maybe I've been like really busy and I just haven't really tuned into my body and been able to feel that and allow it to be processed. But physical emotions, holding in emotions, can cause physical side effects. Anger, resentment, jealousy, sadness, all of these, and it is not just limited to those emotions. Those are just common examples that people will choose to just stuff inside. And it will cause physical symptoms. It absolutely can. And once again, I can tell you personal experience. I just had this over the weekend where I'm processing a lot right now. There's a lot coming up for me as we wrap up the year of the snake, and I have a lot of emotions that I'm processing right now. And I got really nauseous. I just got really nauseous over the weekend, and I was trying to eat dinner, and I was like, I know I'm hungry. I know I need to eat, and I'm trying to eat, and I'm just like overly nauseous. And I cried for like 15, 20 minutes, and then I felt totally fine and was able to eat my whole dinner. And it's just because I needed to cry. And just I was not allowing myself the space to be able to feel the fact that I needed to cry and then actually be able to cry. So this really can happen and manifest. These last ones are all kind of related to this. Of the next one here is, when was the last time I took just a few minutes for myself? Once again, are you pushing feelings down? Are you pushing the emotions down? And is your body communicating with you of like, hey, excuse me, please, I really need to feel this. I need this to be processed. And because you're not listening, I'm going to cause a weird pain in your side right now. Or once again, for me, I'm going to make you super nauseous and not be able to eat until you take 10 minutes to yourself and just freaking cry and allow it to come out. I know it can seem like very woo-woo for a lot of people, but feelings and stuffed down emotions are a huge contributor to chronic health issues. So when was the last time you took just a few minutes for yourself to let yourself feel and give yourself the space to be able to feel? Next one. When was the last time I really rested? Here's the thing with this one too. I'm not talking about just physical rest. So physical rest could be sleep. It could be just some space. It could be giving ourselves 20 minutes to watch our favorite little show or guilty pleasure or whatever it may be. That could be it. But this is also mentally, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, emotionally. When was the last time you rested? Women, big questions. And I really invite you to take that question very seriously, because I often see that too, playing a massive role. When was the last time you gave yourself, your brain, a 30-minute break? Just let it be. That's a big deal. It's a big deal. There's all kinds of types of rest that is needed that we especially need. When was the last time you made sure you rested, and rested, once again, in these variety of ways: mentally, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, obviously physically? It's a big one. Last one here. Identify, and by identify I mean actually name, feelings linked to whatever issue is coming up for you. For example, I feel a weird pain on my right side under my rib cage. So we're naming that. Okay. What might this be tied to? Well, for me as a practitioner, the first thing I think of is your liver. That is where your liver is. This is, once again, like where some basic physiology can come into play. Like liver, okay. Am I angry and or frustrated about something right now? Once again, emotionally, our body will communicate with us, and it can sometimes, very oftentimes, come out as physical symptoms. What are you holding in? Are you holding in any sort of anger, frustration? If I see a lot of issues popping up on either the left side or on the right side, and it's mostly one-sided, I'm going to think, what are we processing right now, emotionally and or energetically, in our masculine or feminine? The left side is tied with our feminine, our right side is tied to our masculine. For me, for many years, I had a lot of issues on my right side. I also want to acknowledge that I am left-handed, because I do think that matters. So my right side is not as strong. I have real physical imbalances between my left and my right. We all do, by the way. I do actively work on balancing those two sides out as best I can. No, it's never going to be perfect. And what else was I processing? Well, I was processing a lot of issues around my own masculine energy. And I was operating from my own masculine energy, always doing, always lists, always trying to get things done, type A personality, overachiever, all of these things, busybody. It's because I was operating mostly from my masculine. And so all kinds of issues just started on the right-hand side. And I developed chronic issues on my right-hand side. Is that a coincidence? No, not in my eyes. And we see this a lot with a lot of chronic issues. Also acknowledging physical imbalances can also be playing a role here, but also I think it's worthwhile to acknowledge what else could be playing a role. Every organ holds on to different things. If someone gets a lot of headaches or migraines, once again, I want to dig deeper into all of the physical things that can be playing a role here. But also, are you in your head all the time? That could be it. With your, let's see, other big ones. Do you have a lot of breathing problems? Do you have a lot of issues like with breathing, shortness of breath, like lung problems? Obviously, once again, like let's dive down the physical route, but grief and sadness are held in the lungs. What are we not processing? What are we choosing not to feel? What are we choosing to kind of shove down that may be causing some issues with your lungs and breathing problems? So once again, all of these things can be playing a role here. And so this checklist is designed to just help you kind of bring you back and ideally help you center. This does not happen overnight. This is a process. And I'll tell you once again, as things come up for me and my body, I still go through the checklist. I have it mentally. I had to actually write it down for this episode. And once again, we're going to share this. But this is a checklist I go through every time I feel weird things come up. And it takes me off the edge. It takes me from, diving down into some weird rabbit holes, especially like with the amount of knowledge I have about the body. I can go down some weird rabbit holes. So, and if you Google all of your symptoms or put them in like an AI kind of service, like, yeah, you can go down some weird rabbit holes. So before you jump down the rabbit hole, just take a few minutes to go through this checklist. And almost always, this is going to take you off a little bit of the ledge and help you to explain why you're feeling the way you're feeling. As always, if you need help with any or all of this, we will obviously look at physical, mental, emotional things that can all be playing a role. When it comes to chronic health issues, we can help you look at your labs from a functional perspective. We'll look at symptoms, health history. We offer free consultations. We will help you peel back the layers. And we love to do that. We love puzzles. We all love, all of us in this practice love doing this. So we are also here for support as you need it. And this is not a thing that's going to change overnight. This takes practice and consistency. You can write this list down for yourself. You can print it out. You can put it somewhere that maybe you feel like your health anxiety always happens around blank, maybe put it in your purse, your wallet, whatever it may be, carry it around with you and just pull it out and just go through the list. And that with practice, this would really help bring you back, center you, and help you bring you to a little bit of a better place. Thank you for listening. As always, please like, subscribe, follow. If it resonates, 5-star reviews really, really, really mean the world to us. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.